particular year, we had two kids. So the boy in the middle of the picture here, we actually found his mother. Our social worker, we have a new social worker here on the left, Rona, and she actually found his biological mother. Long story, but so he had not seen his biological mother since he was an infant, so he didn't even really remember what she looked like. She's very young. She's right beside him on the left there, but we're able to facilitate that. So praise God for that. We had another young woman. I don't have a picture, but she's been in our shelter for a few years, and we've known her mother, but it just took a while kind of to build that relationship again. But she went home to live with her mother. She still comes to Brand New Day for tutorials and all that, so we're able to follow her up, but she's also doing really well. Her name is Rika, and this is John here in the middle. I believe the Becks might have shared a little bit about Rika when they were here a few months ago. But so those are some updates with the kids in the shelter. They're all doing well. They're all in school. A lot of them have medical needs that we have to meet. We actually have some kids going to counseling now because a lot of times, the trauma from their past is starting to affect them in different ways. So that's one reason why we only have a few kids, because it's actually quite expensive to give them the therapy they need and the different types of therapy that they need and rehabilitation, we call it. I mean, it doesn't always mean drug rehabilitation, but just kind of rehabilitation of the whole person. So that's kind of my quick update about the shelter kids, but I wanted to spend some time to give an update about our outreaches. So I have a co-director who's Filipina. Her name is Krista. And actually, she has some new prayer cards back here on the table if any of you guys want to take those. If you run out, I have more. But we started the ministry together almost 11 years ago, Krista and I. And her sister is also very involved, Mervy. And so Krista's heart is really for the outreach. That's kind of that's the passion that really drives her. She wants to reach more kids and more kids and more kids as much as possible. So we have this area that we've been reaching out to, and I won't mention the name since we're online, but the city that's next to our city is more of a bigger city, and it's closer to Manila, and there's actually, I would say, quite a few more street kids per capita there than there are in a lot of cities in the Philippines. And one of the main reasons, in my personal theory, which I don't really know if you could find documentation on this, but I did look it up on Wikipedia, that city where we're reaching out has the largest resettlement area from the 90s, from people from Manila that were squatters in Manila were resettled into this area in the 90s. And I think Steve Reed and some other action people were actually involved church planting back in those days. But so now here we are at the second generation of those, extremely poor people that were sent out of Manila, which in that time it was rice field, middle of nowhere. But now my theory is that that's why there's more street kids there than in a typical city, because not that all of those people, became addicts or whatever, but when you have a huge community of extremely poor people, there's going to be more addiction and kind of more gang activity and that kind of thing than a typical place. So in this particular city nowadays, there are a lot of street children and a lot of hardcore street children. So we use the term hardcore to mean kids who have totally run away from home, and they basically this is a group here in the picture. They've basically become addicts. They don't go home anymore, or if they do, it's just to change clothes and they go back. And we've actually, learned a lot more about how the depth of their depravity this particular year. So earlier this year, we were doing kind of a new style of outreach. This is Susanna, one of our interns here on the left. She came with us on an outreach, and we were just intentionally going to this area. So the kids end up kind of living under this bridge. It's kind of a big highway up here. Can't really tell, but they stay under the bridge because it's dry. And then there's some little homes that have been built on the other side, kind of squatter homes. But the kids have basically run away, and this has become their new home. So, but they're actually very open to, it's maybe not like American culture where rebellious youth, don't want adults to reach out. But here, they love it when we come, and usually we'll bring like hot dogs and rice or, some kind of I wouldn't say nutritious, but a belly filling snack, and then we'll do, it depends on who we have with us, but we'll do activities, kind of like sidewalk Sunday school, just depending on what we have who we have with us that day. So, but you can kind of see the situation here of where they're living. And let's see. So, we'll do like prayer time, and we preach the gospel every time we go, but it doesn't necessarily mean it sinks in, what we're teaching. Because in the Philippines, everybody's heard of Jesus, everybody's heard of God. So, it takes discipleship for them to actually get it. But still, we lead them, in prayer when we can. As you can see, they're not all really paying attention, but, you know, the Lord is still moving. And I just love this picture of them listening to one of our staff sharing the gospel. So, and of course we bring candy with us or, whatever. A lot of times visitors will have stuff we can give out. So, but it's just these are kind of the older kids, I guess, on that particular day. So back in May, so after all this kind of intentional outreach for a few months in this particular area, and so another thing we do is we invite the kids sometimes even to our shelter because we'll have like a big activity or something. And so they know about Brand New Day. They know that we have a shelter. They know that we have scholarships and we have different ways to help. But I mean, these kids, most of them don't really want help. I mean, they do, but they don't really want to make that choice necessarily. It takes a long time of just showing that we care, really, and building that relationship. So the one boy here on the left, he started getting serious about wanting to get off the street. So he started telling Krista, I want to get off the street, and she kind of like spends a little bit of like maybe a week or two or just a time period for them to show that they're really serious. If it's just the one, I want to come with you, it's not really that easy. That you have to show that you're serious. So this boy,
the red or the other?
No, the one in the black. The one in the red used to be in another shelter, but he ran away. But anyway, so this boy became more and more serious. And part of it was that he got really sick. So he was getting, we found out later it was a lot of parasites and he was just getting really thin. But he decided that he really wanted to come. So Krista told him, okay, meet me at this certain day, a certain time. So when she went to meet him, there were two other kids that also wanted to come that day that she had also been trying to convince to leave the street. So we had 3 new kids in early May. And new admission day is my favorite day because, it's like the beginning of their new journey in life. It's so exciting. So, they get new clothes, and this is just a cute picture of Krista cutting the little boy's nail. He was 8 years old, this boy here. And then that's him on the left. And we ended up finding out that it was not really a situation that he could be reunified ever. Like, it was long story, but we also found his brother too. So we ended up, because they're so young and still adoptable, we found a partner organization that we referred them to so that they can be adopted someday. So we don't do adoptions because in the Philippines, you kind of have to choose whether you're doing that or not doing that. You can't kind of mix kids that are adoptable and not. So we do not do adoptions. So we partnered with another Christian organization who is facilitating their adoption. So this is the day that we brought them to the other agency. So, and then in August, we had this other new little 8-year-old boy come. And then we had a new girl also come who's beside me here she was referred by Beth and Tom Potter, who are Canadian action missionaries who have a school, and she was in their long story, but they were very concerned about her safety. So they referred her to us. And then we ended up having another 4 new kids. So we had kind of this time where August, September, where we had a bunch of new kids. So this is when Jean and Jane Cassell visited us. So that's the only time we usually ever have group pictures when we have visitors. But so this is kind of a picture of like all of us, including the new kids. So, but unfortunately, a couple days after the Cassells left, so this is just a picture of those kids from that day at the outreach in our shelter. So I thought it was really cool that this picture, I had no idea the day that I took this picture that, 5 of those kids would end up being in the shelter. And Ariel wasn't, this one in the black, he was there that day, but it was a different angle. Anyway, so that was really cool. But unfortunately, and this is another new boy that came in. But a few days later, so when this boy actually came, a few days later, a group from the street came to visit him, but ended up convincing him to leave. Very long, complicated story, but we also learned through that there's some trafficking going on within the group, and even parents of kids trafficking them. And so, without going into details, a lot came to light. So this kid came, and he's the older brother of the 8-year-old who had been there for a while. But then he came for a few days and left. And then this is the brother of the girl who would come back in May, but he left. And then So sometimes the kids run away, but then they come back. So this is a picture of 3 of our kids who had run away and come back. Of course, when they come back, they've been high for 24, 48 hours. They're tired, they're hungry, so they just have to sleep it off. So, I mean, it's hard, you know, because it's hard on us too. It's hard on even the other kids in the shelter because we've kind of formed a bond with them, and then they're part of our family, and then they leave, but then they come back. So the original 3 new kids, you know, one was sent to the adoption place, and then the other 2 back in May, which one of them is Judy and the other one's Ariel. They ran away, but they also came back. So praise God, they came back. So we had, I think I wrote it in my newsletter, I think there's 10 new kids this year, but 5 ran away and didn't come back. Is that right? Or 4? Anyway, I lose track. But so that's the hard thing, but that's just kind of the way it is. And as I said, we learned a lot through this. We learned about the actual situation of, you know, this one boy, for example, that wanted to leave the street, but then the people holding him in bondage were not happy about that. So they came and convinced him to leave again. You know, so it's complicated. It's not just an easy thing to open up a house and just save a bunch of kids, you know. So those are some updates with that. Unfortunately, this 8-year-old who came back in August also ran away, and he actually came back, but then ran away again after 5 days. And he's actually part of that same family with the stuff going on, but it's hard. And especially for this young of a boy, it was heartbreaking, at least for me. I mean, I feel like, you know, it's a different kind of bonding when it's that young of a kid. He was still really sweet. He would sit on your lap and he was just so happy, and you had no idea that he was going to run away, but he did. And then this boy, this is Ariel, who has been with us since May, ran away, but came back and actually ran away, I think twice or 2 or 3 times. But we just have learned through him of how much he struggles with the addiction that he had. He's only 13, but he has done some meth, but mainly just they sniff these inhalants, and it's not necessarily a chemical addiction, but it's psychologically addicting. And he said he'll just have the cravings come on, and then if he happens to be in a vulnerable position at that point in time, like if he happens to be holding money and he happens to be walking home from school, you know, it's tempting to just go buy the stuff or to run away, you know. So, but at least he's open about it, and he wants to be helped, and he wants us to help him, but he's also run away 3 times, and we have to give a limit. You know, we can't just say, because he's like, I have one more chance, right? And we're like, and he ran away again after that time. So we said, okay, we're not going to tell them how many chances they get after that. But anyway, so you can pray. I mean, I would say particularly ask prayer for these 2 boys, because especially the one who's still in the street, just because I have no idea what's happening to him right now. And it's sad. But I mean, he also has to choose to say. He chose to run away twice, you know. He could have chosen to stay. It's also still their decision. So those are some updates with that. So that kind of so all of these things make us realize our need for a better program. So we realize that we need to have a more secure place, so it's harder for them to run away, for example. Or we realize that we need to have activities for them back to back all day long, because, I mean, the kids that have been there for a while, they go to school, so that's their activity. But then the kids that are new, they can't just go to school right away, so we need to have stuff for them to do all day. So it even emphasizes more the need for our own facility and our own place. So moving on to my next update is about our land project. So for the past maybe 3 years or so, maybe more, we've had a vision and been raising funds to buy land so that we can, again, have our own facility, be able to cater our facility for what we need. So right now we're renting 3 homes, but of course that's also expensive to pay rent for 3 homes, but they're also kind of dilapidated and they're small. There's not like a lot for rent there that's big enough. So we found a piece of land about a couple of years, or about 1.5 years ago, and we prayed a lot about it for maybe 6 months before making our decision. And then we made a contract with the seller. Long story, but we've finally bought the land. So this is one angle of it. It's hard to get the whole land in the picture, but this was one morning a few weeks ago, because we kind of rotate who there's construction workers there during the week, but during the weekend we rotate who takes care of the land, because someone has to always be there 24/7. So I was on duty that morning, and it was just a beautiful morning. So this was my good morning from the Philippines picture. So I think that's on my newsletter. So we have been making our plans for the building. I have a background in CAD drawing, so I was able to draw the plans, and then yeah, I mean, praise God that I had that skill. And my old boss gave me a program to use, so I can. He didn't need it anymore, so we've been spending the last maybe year making these drawings and kind of perfecting them. And then there's a Canadian missionary who's on the field right now, Cole Sundberg, and he is also a CAD designer. So he was able to do these 3D drawings kind of at the last minute. So this is the layout of the land and what we're thinking. So the land is basically a long narrow strip, and it goes up. There's a hill at the top of the land. So we want to have the 2 shelter buildings. So this is going to be, we don't have a pointer, right? So yeah, so this will be, of course, when the road access is from the bottom left corner there. So you come into the land, and then there's a basketball court when you first come in, and then there'll be a play area. We might take down those trees and make a playing field. We'll see. Probably will, because they love soccer. I've taught the kids how to play soccer. So even though it's not really a sport in the Philippines, but now they play. So, and then we'll have this first big building on the left is a church / multi-purpose building. So our church can meet there, that we've helped plant if they want. I mean, it's still up to them where they meet, but it'll have a big multi-purpose area where they can meet. Actually, I'll show you the plans in a minute, but the vision is that the kind of the left side of the land will be more open to the community, because that's where the multi-purpose building will be. We'll have tutorials there, classrooms, and again, the church, and then the playing fields and all that. So that'll be kind of more open to the public. The gate will be open most of the day, probably, kind of just, a ministry that the community can benefit from. But then the shelter area, these 3 shelter buildings will be behind a wall, and it'll be more secure, because the social welfare department wants us to have a secure place, and we need that, and part of the influence, I said before, the boys from the street came and convinced the other boy to leave. Like, we don't really want to have that kind of interaction available. So, I mean, you can't really avoid it necessarily, but these walls will help. So just to show you more details if you're interested. So this is the layout of what would be the shelter buildings. So the vision is to have 6 households of children. So we want to have it like group homes, So the first level, which this is a picture of the first level, but the second level is exactly the same, because it would be a household of children downstairs and then a household upstairs. So separate house parents, separate kitchen, separate everything, and just with stairs on the outside. And then we would have, when the whole thing is finished, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, we would have 3 buildings of this. So we'd be able to house 72 children or so, because we would have we could fit 3 bunk beds in each bedroom. So that would be 6 kids in each bedroom. So 12 times 6, 72. And then this would be our multi-purpose building, which I said it could be a church. If the church wants to use it, we'll have a big multi-purpose hall, and then classrooms downstairs. We'll have a kitchen that the church could use if they're going to have some kind of event and they need a kitchen, or if we have an event and need a big kitchen, And then the upstairs will be also some more classrooms, offices for Brand New Day, and then guest space in the back. And so we would have 2 apartments that would fit 4 people, and then kind of a bigger guest room. So if we had a team, this is where the team could stay, and then other people could maybe rent the apartments, maybe even staff, or maybe we have guests that come through, through our partner church and that kind of thing. So guest space is important and could also be an income generating, Second Mile has guest rooms and they have income from that. So maybe we could have income from that too. And yeah, so the kids and the staff were really excited about the land. This is our staff, most of our staff here. Down at the bottom, we had our kind of groundbreaking prayer day. It's not the official groundbreaking, but we kind of went there as soon as we had bought the land and prayed over it. And then we finally brought all the kids there too the other day, because there was so much junk on the land that we felt like we need to clean it up before we brought the kids, because it was not very safe. So the kids have all been there now, and we had a prayer day. So in case you're wondering why there's concrete, we're not really going to use that. It used to be a pig farm, but I actually have a video that shows a little bit more about the land. And I think, are we there, Rob? Are we at the video yet? I think we are. So just a really quick, the entrance to the land. This is where it's going to be the basketball court right here. And then play area and playground here. I could just cut myself out. And then there was a couple of existing buildings on the land. So, but the people, when they left, they took the roof, they took everything. So we just decided to invest. We had a little bit more money left over after the land. So we were just fixing up this little house for somebody to live there because we have to have somebody guard the land. And then, so this is kind of a little bit past that house, you can see. So the basketball court would be in the background there. So then looking this way would be the church, multi-purpose building. And I'm just explaining the stuff that I already explained to you earlier. So there's actually another piece of land behind it. So where the cow is, that's not actually ours. So then this is at the top of the hill. This used to be a pig farm a long time ago. And then people built houses on top of it, kind of half-built houses. So we're not really going to use any of this part. We're going to, I mean, it might be used as a driveway, but we're not going to use any of that structure. You can see the walls are real thin. It's not like it's that strong anyway. But then the boys' house, the first boys' house we'll build will be right there. And then another one down the hill. And then this is Krista, and she's just explaining. She has all these ideas about other stuff to put on the land. Like we want to have, so it kind of goes down steeply there. We want to have like a bonfire area, maybe like a little bonfire area, and then a prayer area and a zoo. She wants to have a zoo. That's what she's explaining because she loves animals, and animals really are therapeutic, you know, and maybe even have goats and stuff that we could, chickens, pigs, you know, things that we could maybe even, that would benefit us. I guess you could put it in a nice way. So all kinds of animals, she says. So that's pretty much all that we said in the video, but I just we wanted to make this video before leaving just so you could kind of, it's hard to show a picture that shows the whole land because it goes up a hill like that and goes back down. So includes my official presentation. So thank you for those of you online who joined us, and I'll take questions in a little while. Thank you guys for joining.